Hello everyone, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. 25th October was a day when a very important international event that happened in the year 1945. So if you remember 1945, one thing that comes to your mind will be the Second World War, the rise of Hitler and the Mussolini, and USA bombing the two important islands of Japan, that is Hiroshima and the Nagasaki. Recently, you would have also come across a movie that got released, that is Oppenheimer. So these are some of the events that happened between 1939 to 1945. So at the end of the Second World War, on 25th October 1945, we are talking about a very important internationally crucial institution got established, and that institution is called as United Nations Organization, that is also called as UNO. And the main task of UNO in the year 1945 was to work towards international peace and also to prevent Third World War from happening, because 1914 to 1919 was the time period of the First World War. 1939 to 1945 was the time period of Second World War. After the 1914 to 1919, the First World War, okay, there was one more institution that got established in order to prevent the Second World War from happening, and that was called as League of Nations. Okay, so League of Nations completely failed because the Second World War took place between 1939 to 1945. So at the end of the Second World War, one more important institution came out on the same lines of League of Nations, that is United Nations Organization, so that the Third World War will not happen. So 25th October 1945 is when the United Nations Organization got established. In today's video, we will look at what is United Nations Organization, when was it established, why was it established, okay, and we will also look at what is the success or the failure of the United Nations Organization. What are the major failures of the UNO, and we will also be looking at what is India's role in the United Nations Organization. Okay, so this will be the index for this particular video. Before we continue, I want you to subscribe the Legacy IAS Academy YouTube channel and also press the bell icon so that you never miss any update from the Legacy IAS. If you look at why are we even talking about this particular issue, if you look at this, how the United Nations was born on this day in the year 1945, as a very huge article in the explained section of the Indian Express that has been published, and this is one. And if you look at the date here, 24th October 1945, San Francisco, California, United States. Okay, this is where the United Nations Organization was established in the United States of America. So taking this into the context, let's talk about when was United Nations Organization was actually formed. Okay, see, we have answered this question already. This was established in the year 1945. Why in the year 1945? Because in the year 1939, the Second World War broke out, and the Second World War was fought till 1945. So after the Second World War, in order to maintain world peace and make sure that the world will not get into any other wars in the future, the world leaders back then, including the Prime Minister of Britain, Winston Churchill, including him. So we came out with an organization called the United Nations Organization. So if someone asks you what is the major objective of the United Nations Organization, the main objective is to make sure that the Third World War never happens, in order to protect world's peace and also to prevent Third World War from happening. The United Nations Organization was established in the year 1945. Now, if you look at why was it established, okay, why was United Nations Organization was actually formed. If you look at these people, the Prime Minister of Britain, that is Winston Churchill, and the President of USA, Franklin D. Roosevelt, in the year 1941 itself, had signed a charter. According to this charter, they wanted to come out with an institution that will prevent wars from happening in the world and that will also prevent global peace. So this was a brainchild of these two people, that is Franklin D. Roosevelt and the Winston Churchill. Okay, so The first objective was to prevent wars from happening. See, if you look at the First World War, that is 1914 to 1918 is the First World War. Okay, so after the First World War, there was an institution that was launched, that was called as League of Nations, LON. There was one more treaty that was signed called as Treaty of Versailles. Treaty of Versailles in the year 1919. It is also said you can expect such questions in your world history also. The Treaty of Versailles sowed the seeds for the Second World War. Okay, just a statement, explain or discuss or comment, that can be the question in the mains exam. So League of Nations failed for various reasons. Let's not get into the reasons for the failure of the League of Nations, but all these failures, the reasons for the failures of the League of Nations were corrected were corrected and after the Second World War this institution was formed, that is UNO. See, if someone asks you, is UNO successful? Yes, of course UNO is very, very successful, just because of a reason that we have not fought Third World War. UNO has played a very crucial role in preventing World War from happening. Okay, so this is why the United Nations organization was established in the year 1945. If you look at the principal organs of United Nations organization, actually when it was started we had 6 principal organs of the United Nations. As of now we have 5 principal organs of United Nations. Starting from United Nations General Assembly. General Assembly is the assembly of all the General Assembly is the assembly of all the members of the United Nations. Every member of the United Nations will have a role to play in the General Assembly. Okay, now second, if you look at United Nations Security Council, UNSC, there are 5 members in the United Nations Security Council. These are famously called as P5 members of the UNSC. P5 members of the UNSC. So this is very important to know who these 5 members of the United Nations Security Council are, and you would be knowing this already. So first one is USA, second is USSR, third is France, fourth is Britain, fifth is China. So 5 important members of the United Nations Security Council, and they have a very special power called as veto power. VETO, very special power called as veto power. Okay. Now, Economic and Social Council, also called as ECOSOC, International Code of Justice, ICJ, any disputes between the countries. For example, India, Pakistan, if there is any issue, then who is the adjudicator? It is the International Code of Justice, the adjudicator. United Nations Secretariat. So these are 5 important organs, principal organs of the United Nations Security Council. If we look at success and the failures of the United Nations organization, if you look at what are the success and what are the failures, see, of course there are some of the failures, and one important failure is with respect to India and Pakistan. Till date, India and Pakistan conflict is live, and United Nations Security Council or the United Nations General Assembly was not able to do anything with respect to India Pakistan conflict. Okay, now first it had 51 members. Let's look at the success and then we'll come to the failure. It had 51 members and now it has 193 members, which means there's a huge expansion in the membership of the United Nations Security Council and also United Nations General Assembly. Okay, so in the year 1948, World Health Organization was created, and WHO, if you remember, played a very crucial role in tackling COVID-19. So WHO was the principal coordinator for the distributions of the vaccines to even third world countries. Okay, so the World Health Organization played a very crucial role in conducting various experiments and also funding a lot of research projects abroad. So in order to make sure that we have a faster development of vaccines which can fight COVID-19. So WHO is a very principal and a very important organ of United Nations organization and a reason for its success. If you look at United Nations 1950 created a High Commissioner for Refugees to take care of the refugee crisis. For example, recently in India, we had refugees from Myanmar who crossed the border and fled into the Indian border. Okay, and these were Rohingya refugees, Rohingya crisis, and we closed our borders to Rohingyas, citing the national security reasons. but Bangladesh was open to it, and Bangladesh took refugees. And even today, there's a huge demand by the people around the world that India should open its borders to the Rohingya refugees and should accept refugees and to rehabilitate them. Okay, so such refugee crisis, and recently we have the refugee crisis from Gaza. Okay, and we also had the refugee crisis with respect to Ukraine when Russia attacked Ukraine. We also have the refugee crisis with respect to Armenia and the Azerbaijan conflict. So looking at all these, while by signing the High Commissioner for the refugee crisis, by setting up an office for the High Commissioner of the refugee crisis, United Nations organization has played a very crucial role. 1994. Okay, so let's look at some of the failures. In the year 1994, United Nations organization failed to stop Rwandan genocide in Rwanda. This is one of the important failure of United Nations organization. Second important failure, Israel and Palestine conflict. See, this Palestine-Israel conflict started after the setting up of the United Nations organization. UNO came to existence in the year 1945, but the Israel, a separate country, was formed in the year 1947. So after the setting up of the United Nations organization, we have this institution that came into existence, that is the Israel and the Palestine conflict. So Israel and the Palestine conflict is one of the biggest failure of the United Nations organization. You look at India, Pakistan, we have fought 3 wars. 1947 we fought a war, 1965 we fought a war, 1971 we fought a war, 1999 also we fought a war, which means we fought 4 important wars between the neighbors. And though UNO was in place while we fought all these 4 wars, but still United Nations organization was an utter failure in preventing wars between India and Pakistan. And conflict between India and China still remains. UNO is silent about it. Conflict between China and Japan all along an island called the Senkaku Islands is still alive. And China having conflicts with Philippines and the other ASEAN countries over the South China Sea, and also the 9-dash line, still alive. So if you look at all these pointers, we can also point out that United Nations organization has failures, but look at the success story. In the absence of UNO, maybe in the period of Cold War between 1945 to 1991, the Third World War would have erupted and spoiled the entire world. So, two faces of the same coin. There are successes and there are also failures. Let's look at India and the United Nations organization. So if you remember, when India got independence in the year 1947, UNO was already there, and India became a founding member of the United Nations organization. And outrightly, India declared that we will be a part of UNO. So India is a founding member of UNO, and India is the largest contributor to the UN peacekeeping force. Okay, there's one force, the army that the UNO maintains, and that is called the United Nations peacekeeping force. And India is the largest contributor to the United Nations peacekeeping force. And India, along with the UN peacekeeping force, played a very crucial role in the Korean War, the war which broke out between North Korea and the South Korea. India and the UNO played a very crucial role in protecting the territory and also protecting the humanity in the Korean War. So that's it for today. If you have liked the video, hit the like button and also press the bell icon not to miss any updates from the Legacy IAS Academy. Have a nice day.